Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And today we're going to dive into another psych related topic. Well, mostly I guess it's not entirely psych related, but it is definitely kind of leaning towards that psych side of things. We want to talk about balance. You know, everyone throws around the word balance, but we want to kind of dig into that and figure out what the heck does that actually mean. And you're probably going to find that it's going to mean something different to different people. It's certainly not going to be, there's certainly not going to be a set of rules for everyone in terms of balance. And that's kind of what we want to dig into and where people might differ in that regard.
The amount of times that you've heard balance, or we'll say, balanced lifestyle, or I want to balance my gym life to my home life or to my work life or whatever. And it's getting to the point now where I've seen some coaches, or even not coaches, other fitness competitors, potentially being asked this advice by others or not, and just it's unsolicited advice. And what I mean by that is that now they're giving them what their idea of balance is. And kind of one of the best things I heard years ago now from one of my mentors was, don't ever go looking for balance. Let it find you. Because if you've read something, or if you've watched someone, like, for instance, Arnold, let's go with Arnold. Arnold probably had the most balanced life out of all of us. And Arnold, in terms of he had Mr. Olympias, and then he was the movie action star, and then he was the governor for a bit there. So like that was balanced. But now, was he always balanced? And was his bodybuilding lifestyle balanced? This is what I would really like to start getting both of our opinions on, because I've got lots of different information and tips and tricks out there for the boys and the girls, because there is a reason why Austin and I have stayed around in the business in terms of coaching for as many years and as many clients as we have, and we aren't burning out people, or we aren't causing them to not have some kind of balance, but also showing them different forms of what that can be without actually telling them what here is your balance.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because there's a couple different sides to this. So we could talk about balance within, just within this industry, and then we can talk about balance within your life as a whole, like being diverse.
Yep, absolutely.
Because you mentioned Arnold. Well, his life was diverse, but if you were to dig into each segment, I'm sure he was very unbalanced during the times, he was trying to accomplish something within each, subgroup, I guess, if you will, because at the end of the day, I mean, my thing is, I don't want people to take the word balance as a way to just be lazy and not work hard at something, and it can certainly get skewed in that way, where you could just kind of write off your lack of effort as you feeling unbalanced. Mm-hmm. And so, that's kind of a fine line that people tread. Where do you draw that line? I mean, you're going to find across the board that there's a lot of accomplished people that are very unbalanced, or by definition, they would be unbalanced, meaning that they are, by definition, meaning that they're actually putting a lot more focus into one thing than they are other aspects of their life. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously the difference in people's goals is going to make a substantial difference in potentially what their balance might be. And there's obviously a whole other slew of factors in there as well. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where, when I go online and I see people talk about balance and trying to kind of force their agenda on other people, or what they feel is balance, it really drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. Because to me, there's in a couple reasons is they might truly believe that that's what somebody needs to do to be balanced, or, but it also might just be them being kind of jealous. Mm-hmm. of that person. You know what I mean? They're kind of jealous that, man, this person works a little bit harder than me, and they seem like they're doing all right, and they're more accomplished than me. And so this is kind of where my take comes in, in terms of you really have to just find your own balance. You absolutely, at the end of the day, need to be okay with what you're doing. You need to be okay with your balance, and you shouldn't let other people necessarily influence it. If you have a spouse or family and things like that, that stuff may play into it as well. But just in general, no one else is going to be able to tell you what your sense of balance is going to be. It has to be you. You have to. There's plenty of people that someone may say, yeah, you're balanced, but the person's really not that happy. And you need to be happy. I mean, if you're happy and you're not, just blatantly harming other people with your lifestyle, that's probably about as close to being balanced as you're going to get, or, whatever your definition is of it.
Yeah, it nailed it there. To pretty much everything you said there was exactly what I was hoping that we were going to talk about in this podcast, because even going back to my first line there about don't go looking for balance, let it come find you. And it is about trying different things. So we're going to talk about two different, very distinct balances, especially because this is a fitness / bodybuilding / competition kind of podcast here, but we still try to go beyond the scope of that, but also so we can give it the information to you in that regard, so it applies to the contest prep, right? And I think I've pretty much said this on one or two of the other podcasts too, about how, yes, of course, competition prep is unbalanced. Of course it is, but it's not forever. And we already talked about the whole perpetual competing in terms of it. You go from one prep to another. Now you are chronically, we'll say, unbalanced or out of balance, and that's a whole other thing to deal with. But that has helped so many of my clients that when we have this talk and they're getting nervous or they're getting anxious about the upcoming contest prep, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I'm not going to be able to eat the regular foods. And when I say regular foods, I'm not talking, cake and candy. I'm probably talking about how maybe we will cut red meat out because it's just too high of a fat, right? I'm talking about things like that starts panicking them or whatever. Yeah, and one of the biggest lines, I'll say it forever, is just, this is not forever. Okay. And that's also, if they can't make it that 8 to 12 weeks of that, when we're really restrictive on the diet, I try to give them that message, say, this might not be part of what you want for a lifestyle and what will remain and keep you in balance. Because like I think you were saying, is that when things become unbalanced, sometimes we don't even necessarily see them because you're going to the gym, you're seeing visual results in the mirror, you're having other people at the gym reward you for this success, and then other people, of course, being behind your back, being like, "Fuck him, he looks way better than me. I don't want to care about him." But where are the people that can actually give you unsolicited or great advice if it is a balance issue, or if should someone even be doing that, right? And so that's why I do like to have that rapport and that relationship with my clients, that if I start to notice things, then I will start to, we'll say, interject. And I will never tell anyone what to do, but I think any coach worth their salt will give some form of that constructive criticism, in a sense of, let's say we're noticing in the off season, either a competitor of ours or whatever, you've only given them 3 or 4 times a week of cardio for 20 minutes for whatever reason, and you notice that for whatever reason they're posting on Instagram, back at the step mill, blah blah blah, hour feels really good, and you go, but then that's our job. Do you read kind of what I'm saying here, Austin? As in, you know what I mean? As in, you start seeing that as too much, and then you feel you owe the client to bring that up.
Right. Yeah, because what tends to happen is, as you said, they don't necessarily see it right off the bat.
Yes.
And people don't pick up on that until it's too late and there's something wrong.
Right.
Whether like a health issue arises, or it's kind of like the whole competing too much thing. Seems really great for the few years, and then everything kind of goes to shit, and you didn't see it, right? You had no idea. Yeah. So it's kind of, kind of the same thing. So it is good to have, if people are, I'm not going to say everyone, you have to, and this is where it gets tricky. Like you have to kind of know who to listen to. You have to kind of weed out the people that are just trying to bring you down. And then the jealous, that jealousy component, like I said, it's just somebody like people at your job, for example, common one, complaining at you or not complaining, but giving you flack about things that you eat and whatnot. Who cares?
Sure.
Who cares?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
You
got to have thicker skin than that to accomplish anything, whether it's bodybuilding or not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, now if it's myself or Marty telling you something as a coach, we have your best interest in mind, and we're objective, and we know what we're looking for. And, we're going to let you know, hey, you better, just be mindful of this. And I don't want you to get kind of sucked down this rabbit hole and not be able to transition into different phases of our progress. Because there's a lot of people that you mentioned transitioning into contest prep. Well, there's an equal amount of people that have the opposite difficulty of transitioning out of contest prep.
Absolutely.
They get so sucked into that lifestyle, and while it is very difficult, they're so used to more, more cardio, more extreme diet, less food, looking lean, feeling a certain way, like they're grinding, hashtag grind. And, they get into, once they transition into off season and you start telling them, heaven forbid, post show that they need to rest and, reboot their nervous system and fix their health markers and all this stuff, then they freak out. So, and it's just that we kind of put the blinders on, but I think that you have to be able to be successful as a competitor, especially. I mean, you have to be able to embrace the importance of all phases.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. I really like I'm going to start using this. I'll give you credit for this one at least. So the horses with the blinders on is perfect, but who do you have to? You need to have that great coach that does care behind the horse especially with the blinders on, because now you do need to see everything else that the horse does not see. Like the horse is meant obviously not to have distractions. That's why it's such a great analogy. Now, of course, the horse's blinders aren't on forever. They're on for however many X weeks of that prep or whatever, right? And then, of course, you can take the blinders off and say, okay, here's some other options for us to do based upon the results and kind of things, right? I've got two kind of really good, relevant personal stories about some of my clients here that I'll shout out about two different kind of situations here. One of my bikini champions, Katrina, was doing so well. She was living at living with her parents at the time to save some money up, and was doing meal prepping. And she was wanting to do her first show, and she started, I think, 17, 18, 19 weeks out. Started meal prepping, started everything, and she worked in an office environment where all of the ladies that she worked with were significantly older. She was 24, 25, and they would have been about in between 35 and 50. And of course, off the beginning, there's lots of support, right? There's, you go get it, you get fit or whatever. And then as the weeks went past, the more fitterness started coming along. And then it was oh my God, you're starting to get too skinny. What are you doing? What are you doing? And like, she's still eating 120 grams of carbs, 40 added fats, 120 protein, just a 5'1" bikini girl, right? And that's still a lot of food, right? But yet there's, don't you start liking variety? So that's why I really want to emphasize the whole jealousy thing, because this will happen. And people that it's not even so much don't have your best interests in mind, but don't necessarily understand the whole process. They will start to try to somehow take you down, whether they know it or not. And that sounds pessimistic, because I know that her coworkers they cared about her, whatever, and that maybe there was a little bit of please make sure you're healthy, whatever. But that's why I love that you brought up, there is some essence there to jealousy. No, nothing by any means against this, is not going against women at all. But when I've seen women in the workplace, when someone tries to start a new fitness endeavor and they start seeing success, it's like they'll show up with cupcakes for the office and be like, oh, guess it looks like you can't have one today. And I've seen this with men too. With men that are on a meal plan, they'll bring the donuts and be like, oh, sorry, Diety McDieterton can't have one of these anymore like a normal person. So that's, you can pick out pretty quick. And then also, if you can't pick out pretty quick, that's when you ask your coach and say, hey, this is what happened. Why do you think they're doing that? And just as you said, I am a little bit jaded now because of this stuff, but I do think that it is jealousy for a heck of a lot of it too. And then, of course, what happened? Katrina won her show, and of course, everyone in the office was super happy, but yet they almost derailed her mentally. And that's, I don't know if they know that or whatever. So that's just one example where I coached her through that and kind of whatever else there too. And then the other example I'm thinking of would be, my current new client, Kaylee, is that Kaylee has probably in the last month that we've been working together here, she's a nationally ranked natural bikini girl that is always perpetually too lean, in my opinion. She veins coming out of her abs, has been doing this since I think her last show in July. And I said, listen, we've talked in the past about potentially me coaching you. You've had some other coaches. You're not coaching with me, and like it's still ongoing today. And I know it's not going to be quick, but trying to get her to come to terms with it. It's not. Don't be one of those 2 to 3 show girls like we just mentioned here, and don't get burnt out. And know that this is in your best scenario, right? Like as in if that's becoming so unbalanced, because she was doing I think 5, 6, 7 days a week in the gym of cardio, and her prep doesn't start for another 2 or 4 weeks here. I believe it's in September. But I said, listen, we are recovering your body right now because all the signs were there. She was not sleeping, everything else. And so how can you be balanced, let alone in your life and your hobbies, if your hormones, sleep, and we'll say day-to-day things aren't balanced?
Yeah. So 2 things, just kind of follow up on both of those is for your second example, that's just a classic example of being our own worst enemy, like just staying out of your own way is, I guess, the saying that people like to use. And that's those people, unfortunately, like those seem to be the people that actually have really good potential, whether it's genetically or mentally. It's just that they don't know how to channel it themselves very well, so. And it tends to those are your really type A people and your OCD and all that jazz. And I'll be the first to tell you that's me to the T. But the thing is, I know how to make it productive at this point because I've gone down that path and was punished for it, So unfortunately, sometimes that's how you have to learn. But if you can avoid it, all the better. And then your first example, I personally, I don't think that, I think the vast majority of those people, like your coworkers, for example, I think it's kind of an unconscious thing. I don't necessarily think they are intentionally trying to sabotage you. I don't think they go home at night thinking about it as if they're going
ways to ruin their diet, like put too much barbecue sauce in the chicken. Be like, yeah, okay,
yeah, Now, I think it can definitely, I think that especially people that are around you more often, it may develop, it may kind of turn into that. So we're talking about family members, and I can give you personal examples. Like I've had not close family members. So like my parents, for example, they don't say shit about anything that I do at this point because I've done it so long. And for one, they know that it won't matter what they say. And secondly, they know that I have a good handle on everything and they're very supportive. They see that I work hard and that I'm accomplishing things, so they're happy, which is great. But that's obviously not the case with everyone. I've had other members of my family that have definitely not, and this is an unconscious thing. This is I really just am really super irritated that you're able to do this and I'm not thing.
Yeah.
What I mean?
I remember you going in on that on the relationships podcast. You were talking about your family and how, they just don't understand like what you do, why you do it. Yeah.
And you have to, you can't always drastically change your environment. You can't always change your coworkers and things. But I guess my point there is that some of those people, like the coworkers, for example, it's not necessarily something you need to waste a ton of mental energy on. If you want to have a little sit down with them and talk to them and just be like, hey, I'd be glad to maybe help you out, or maybe explain to them why you do what you do, or whatever. Some people might not give a shit and might not really receive you very well, but some of them might. And you're not going to win them all. You're going to have people that just badger you every day just because that's just their nature.
Yeah.
But, those aren't the people that you necessarily need to put a lot of mental energy into and stress yourself out about.
Correct.
It's more so the people that you're around more often that have more influence in your life. Those are the people that you absolutely need to. You don't want to avoid that stuff. You don't want to let it go on. You need to sit there and have a conversation with them as two civil adults and be like, look, this is what I'm doing. I like to do it. And look, I'm not hurting myself. Kind of explain to them what you're doing. It's not like you're trying to get your parents to support your heroin habit.
Right.
You know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, and I'm generally talking about people that aren't, developing eating disorders and really hurting themselves. I'm talking about people that generally do an all right job with their lifestyle and balance, but you're just going to have to talk. Like, it's going to be one of those, I don't like confrontation. I know a lot of people don't, but it's going to be one of those situations where you're better off just getting it out of the way. I think.
It's one of the so what I will take right off of that, and I'll give you my spin on it too, because yes, absolutely, that conversation does need to be had, especially if it is ongoing and it hasn't stopped. And it's even if it is bringing you down to some degree or not bringing you down, it's just. It can get annoying, especially, we're in the last 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks of prep, and you have to see this person. Okay. But I would say to my girls, and I've done this to myself, is write down either the lines or the body language or the actions of this one or two people, or whoever that bothers you the most, and write them down. And then on a notepad. That's why I love almost every smartphone now has a notepad. Just go and write out the top triggers or things that bothers me. And then when you're not in that situation, you can open up that notepad back up and relook at these things and say, when Uncle Tom said that I needed to have a beer and relax, okay, why am I letting that bug me? And I know this is going way more into the mind side of stuff, but if we don't do this, it's very akin to, of course, I'm going to give you another analogy here, is to sweeping it under the rug. And so we can only sweep so many things under the rug before A, the rug becomes full and looks terrible, or before B, we trip over the rug and now we really mess things up. So and then the other analogy is unpacking these things, right? Like every single, I don't even think there's a kid past 19 or 20 doesn't have some form of baggage. But if you have the tools, which is being able to, like you said, sit down and have a very calm adult conversation with these people. That's how to do it. But that stuff can and will be scary. And I have had multiple chats with my clients about this stuff. And they're like, well, how do I approach this? And I'm like, here you go. Because this is how it's not worked for me. And this is how it has worked for me. You know them better than me. This is potentially a way that they could do that. And I will tell you very firmly that one of the girls I had in the shows that just won here about a month ago is that she had that conversation with someone in her family, and it ended up going really, really, really well. And now that person in the family is eating well, and probably now one of her biggest supporters. So that's what can happen. It's their understanding. And I've said this quite a few times before, and I'll keep saying this is one of my favorites, is that when I mean they, is that your family, your friends, the world, they don't need to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And then we, as the fitness enthusiasts or competitor, need to understand that they don't know. Because if we constantly and chronically are using the line of, oh, well, you just don't understand. Well, duh. Why would they? They know that you are spending X amount of time at a gym, whereas they would rather be Netflix, playing volleyball, you name it. But they don't need to understand that, ladies and gentlemen. They just don't. There's all you can do is ask for the respect. And like Austin, you so beautifully said, like, listen, I'm not being unhealthy here. And if you ever do notice, you even bring them into the conversation or being on your team or something and say, if you start to notice either my mood dramatically changing or if my personality, mention this to me in a polite way. I would greatly respect that. But no, I'm not doing anything to be unhealthy. I've had parents of my clients message me and say, hi, Marty, can I know a little bit more about you? And anything I can do to reassure them and help them out. Like that's, we'll call that the all-encompassing coach. But that stuff can get in the way. And then especially if it is something like your parents directly. And of course, very few people's parents have not had some kind of direct big impact on their life. And now let alone if you were a kid like a lot of my friends or whatever that didn't necessarily receive direct support from their parents in terms of their career choices or whatever. And then now you get this hobby that's healthy that you're doing great with, and you might want to look to see what, then now there's even less support. So I can empathize just how much that can be debilitating, and being able to have that conversation with them about balance and saying, listen, this is not like a forever thing. And in terms of, and you can use my analogy that I've used about school, like that's one of the best ones there is that in school, you are there for school and you are in an unbalanced lifestyle. You can try, and I would love to see, outside of the friggin' prodigies that are able to do this, I would love to see someone that's gone to a 4-year or more university degree and has found balance. Just because it's not going to happen. If you want to get really good marks, you are going to have to sacrifice a lot of stuff. And my last point on that is going to be, I forget where it was. I don't know if it was Shelby Starnes, John Meadows, one of those great fellows that said there is a difference between sacrifice and suffering. And sacrificing is one thing, and then maybe, especially if you're bodybuilding, I get it. I get the suffering a bit here and there, but if the sacrifice dips into the suffering for too long, no one likes suffering in that degree. Especially your most of your fitness people, they do not want to dip too hard into that suffering, and so that's when you might need to give yourself a reality check and or ask for some help and say, listen, I don't think I'm in balance. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And the more resources you can use to be objective with yourself, the better. And and kind of one other little thing to add to that whole family situation or coworkers or what have you is I also kind of warn people that it's kind of like sometimes it can be like a bully. The more you feed them, the more they're going to pick on you as well. So that's another thing to be aware of. And that's not necessarily always the case, but that does happen a lot. Like if you get frustrated, then they may very well get a rise out of that. They're just going to pick on you just because it's a game to them. You know what I mean? So I laugh it off, tell a joke back. You don't necessarily want to have like some weird tension in your workplace and get written up for harassment, but outside of that, I've said some kind of like semi-sarcastic, meanish things to people as jokes when they like a quick comeback, and it's funny, and they don't pick on you anymore. But that's because they were just looking for a rise in the first place. You know what I mean? So it's you will run into that for sure. But maybe now we can kind of go into a little bit about what some like actual concrete things in terms of balance. Are there things that,
sure.
Well, I'll segue it and then I'll let you jump into it too, because I know you have some thoughts, but I always, when I talk about especially competitors, because I know that's a large amount of our audience, I always say it, and it still holds true, is that if you can find this sense of balance, whatever that means to you, and you can establish a consistent lifestyle that's sustainable year round, your transition between your phases of contest prep and off season and things of that nature are going to be so much easier. So, I mean, that's really what I find in the vast majority of people is they Yeah, I mean, if you just have a free for all in the off season, you don't work with a coach, you just do whatever, you just eat whatever, eat big to get big, you just get fat, you don't have any structure in your training, all of this stuff. Yeah, of course, you're going to feel unbalanced as hell when you prep because you have nothing established. You have no baseline established. So I'm not necessarily saying you need to be neurotic year round, but you could certainly ease that transition by having good habits year round, because this, at the end of the day, a lot of people start this venture as a health venture, but then they quickly find out that there are a lot of things that are kind of inherently unhealthy about this. But you still can look at that health as the base of everything and think, wow, my off season isn't really healthy, is it? I'm kind of eating a bunch of shit and I'm kind of not really being healthy, honestly. You know what I mean? So it's a wake up call to some people. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not, of course, if you're going to be a 250-pound bodybuilder, like there's health risks that come with that and there's ramifications potentially. But at the same time, you don't have to exacerbate it. You don't have to make it worse, So, I mean, having that smooth transition will make your life a lot easier.
And even if the smooth transitions, we'll call them that, or there's the transitions. Like I'll break it into 3 kind of distinct phases. We'll go with pre-contest, post-contest, post-show, and then off-season. And you, of course, if you're a first-time competitor, you're not going to know what these are like, and that's fine. That's part of life. That's finding a balance for life, and that's, just pay attention. But once you do a show that you're about to, I just said do. Once you do a show, and then you're going to be moving into your second show potentially, then you to ignore or neglect even having some kind of notes about how you felt during these phases is going to be detrimental to you potentially making the same mistakes. Like how I use my forum for my clients, like I can go back to the last time they did a show and read at 3 weeks out how they were doing mentally. And now if I go back to, like, go say this year, and then at 7 weeks out, they're doing significantly better mentally, and and I will bring that up to be like, hey, go take a read of what you wrote to me 3 weeks out from your last show. Be like, oh my God, I was so grumpy. I was like, because you didn't know what to expect, and like that, there's that education, right? And there's being able to bring that into balance. So, what my point of all this is that once you have the documents, or you even have a little bit of an outline that says something like, pre-contest, show number 1, 12 weeks out to 8 weeks out, felt pretty good. 6 weeks out, felt terrible. 4 weeks out to show day, wanted to murder myself and eat everything I could see. Okay, post-show, rebounded this, and then now the next time you go in, not only will, if you have a great coach that will be able to help you with that and recognize that, especially if it's the same coach going in, which I can't recommend more. Ladies and gentlemen, if outside of a coach really, really going off and doing something so terrible with you, either by health-wise or whatever, stick with the same coach for at least 2 shows. Why? Because then you can see if they're improving you. And there is something called learning how to work with another person's body, learning that person. It does take time, okay? So that's just another little piece of advice there. But so now you have this in your database. So now you know that last time around, that 6 weeks out, you started turning into a grumposaurus. Now, was that because of the food? Was it because of your environment? Do you have new friends now? Are you with that crazy ex-boyfriend, girlfriend now? And this is how you can finally start to see what was your balance. So keep using my 6 weeks out analogy. If at 6 weeks out, you used to go walk your dogs twice a week, and now you started not walking your dogs and you got mom or the boyfriend to do that, that's probably something that was so happy because you love dogs. If you have a dog, you love dogs. Maybe that was something that was so key that you didn't know, and now you need to know. Same thing with post-show. If you had a stash of food built up of all the crap that you want to eat post-show, let's maybe slow that down this time. And so now you can develop more of a balance, and that's the balance for you. And like you said about people training in the off-season, there is way too much going on of just wing it, no program, no coach, which, yeah, I'm a coach, and I'll flat out say that every single frigging client that works with me through the off season winds up significantly better. Why? Because just it's more structured. We can even make the plan called the structured balanced off season, which during those times is when I will tell clients to take vacations, go off of their meal plan, go try out a new hobby, go ride a horse, go take up dodgeball at the whatever that's when you can really live your balance in a sense. And who am I to tell you what balance is? I don't want everyone now to go right outside and start throwing dodgeballs around. Now I get emails saying, Marty, my back looks like I just had that suction or that cupping treatment for the last 3 months. Thanks a bunch. I'm bruised everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying is that is one of the times to kind of, enjoy life. And again, who am I to say what that means? I get it. I know how much I love the gym. I know how much Austin loves the gym, but there are ways to make balance happen around this stuff. And even thinking about that now, if you have 16 to 18 weeks of contest prep, then you have at least 16 to 18 weeks in a non-contest prep, assuming 1 show per year here. There's your balance. So the pendulum will dip towards we'll say unbalanced for the show, and then the pendulum will come back and hopefully go into more of a balance. And I will tell you firmly to this date, I'm 33 and I haven't quite figured out what balance is for me fully yet. But what's exciting is that I've been trying out new things here lately with my buddies. Hi Gabe, hi Gabriel, hi Jay, and hi Brian, and just doing different stuff. And funny enough, what it is, it's with my fitness friends. And we're just trying to do new stuff so that now not only do we get that same excitement for the gym, but just so that I'm not bogged down to the point where I've always said to a couple of the people that I find themselves getting way into the rabbit hole of doing just the gym and just the training. And they're not even taking their girlfriends on dates or something like that. I'm like, if you were to get a broken leg tomorrow, would life be over for you inside of your head? And they kind of pause. And they go, yeah, like if they couldn't train legs, whatever. I'm like, you need some kind of, we'll call it a happiness backup. And I'm not saying ditch your gym stuff. I'm not saying put it on the back burner. I'm saying it's almost very akin to having a savings account, is that you, just in case, have something there ready to go in case one of the worst case scenarios can happen.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about making lists. Well, what's the definition of insanity?
Exactly.
It's
right.
Like if you repeat the same shit, it's gonna probably yield a pretty similar result that you didn't like. So don't do it again. I mean, that's not, obviously there's things we can't avoid. You're probably not going to get in very good shape if you don't push very hard in your prep, and you probably can expect to be tired, and all these things like that comes with the territory. But at the same time, there are those little cues, like you said, that you can recognize and improve your mental state. I know, and this is something that I do, because you gave a really good practical example there and things you can actually do. And this is something I do with people, especially those people that do that really get trapped. They kind of trap themselves in that feeling where they can't do anything else because it's going to hurt their progress. I'm like, okay, well, let's make a checklist of things that actually impact your progress. If you go to, let's say you like a sport, and I use myself as an example, and I like to use myself as an example with these people because like I said, I do lean towards that more extreme side of things. So I think that they see that they can relate to me in some way. It helps them. I enjoy college and international wrestling, and I also like motocross. Okay. Yeah. And those are things that I did before I was bodybuilding, so, I say, well, I've gone to nearly every single home Ohio State wrestling meet this year.
Yeah. Awesome.
So did that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fun. And it was obviously a big stress relief, right? And
exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out. Keep going.
Did that in any way, shape, or form impact my progress? Absolutely not. Because
I would say pause. I would say absolutely did, in terms of for the better.
made
So
it better.
yeah, you know what, that either got you to relax, got you pumped up to see the sport you used to play. I would actually say that yes, it did impact it for the positive. I know I'm being that devil's advocate there, but I think, yeah, man.
Yeah, it's an absolutely positive. And that's not to say, you know, and I even do things like that in contest prep to an extent. You know, if I'm like 2 weeks out and I'm just conserving energy, okay. But for the most part, I go do those things because it is a stress relief. And I don't have to eat at the concession stand necessarily. I can still follow my meals. It's just I'm enjoying something that's not food related. And it's a huge stress relief for me. And guess what? It's like I almost always wake up lighter after I do those things, and I look better because again, I can forget everything for 2 hours or however long it takes. And so again, I'll have people kind of make a checklist. I'm like, well, what do you enjoy? Like what things are of interest to you? It can literally be anything. It doesn't have to be a sport at all. Like guys, just because you're a male, for example, you don't have to like sports, that's fine. You can have some weird off the wall interest. And same thing with the ladies. Find some things that you enjoy and find ways to involve yourself in them, even if it's just buying a subscription to a streaming service where you can watch it online. I mean, it could literally be anything. And you're going to find that you're happier because now, you have something else that you can focus on, and you're going to find that it probably actually helps your results, because this is the thing about a lot of the things that we do to get better at bodybuilding, for example, are so repetitive and mindless that why do people waste so much mental energy and stress into eating 5 meals a day? It's literally the most mindless freaking thing you could possibly do. It's not hard. It's not, especially once you're used to it and you know when to eat and all this jazz. And so why trap yourself inside of that? I tell people in prep, especially, I probably focus more on like the other things, like watching reruns of the wrestling matches and all in the motocross races and all that in prep, because for one, it occupies me, and secondly, I don't have to think about prep to follow the damn plan. I don't have to think about it. It's like there are times I need to focus on. I'm not watching videos while I train, obviously, but other things, I don't have to sit there and dwell. And I think people sit there and dwell on minutia that are completely, useless and have little to no bearing. And all they really do is just cause more stress and do themselves more harm.
Yeah. And that's like we talked about before the podcast started, like the OCD personality types, which, the bodybuilding community can be a savior for that because it is so organized, especially that's type A, right? Where's the very organized type of personality. And so people like you can thrive in that as long as you don't exacerbate it and turn it to like a full-blown something that's now taking over your life, and you don't even know if you're happy doing it anymore. You just know that this is like a soothing technique or whatever, right? But yeah, just like how you just said, I have on every single new client intake is, what are your hobbies outside of the gym? And if for whatever reason they don't fill out that part of it, I will come back to them and say, hey, can we talk about that? And if they don't have any answers at the moment, I'll say, okay, what did you used to do? So I'll give a really great example for me, how you were talking about for years is they going to the local wrestling shows. So I, for the first time in 10 years, bought a new guitar. And just because I was like, I was in a band. I used to play guitar ever since I was grade 3. Haven't really played much for about 10 years. And I just, my favorite band at one point was Blink-182. And I loved his guitar at one point. And I said, you know what, screw it. So I went on eBay and found, his name is Tom DeLong. And I found his deluxe Fender Stratocaster, what it was called, from 2001, that was in seafoam green. And it was exactly the one that I always wanted in high school. And it was actually a pretty darn good deal off eBay. And I said, you know what, I'm getting this, because now there's something that is not only creative, It's something that I've always loved, and so even I'm still learning how to get back into that stuff. And that's what reminded me of that was when one of my clients on the intake said, "I don't have any hobbies right now." And I said, "What hobbies did you used to have?" And she said, "Playing guitar." And I was like, holy crap, me too. And so there you go. Because just like it is with everything here, hobbies, especially in being 2019 and either a young to middle-aged adult or whatever, can always involve food or alcohol or maybe going out some places you don't necessarily want to. So I'm not saying to get a hobby like mine, like guitar, that you can do only by yourself, but I would definitely look into it. Some ideas that I've always given my clients are go for walks with audiobooks or podcasts. I know really, really two good, handsome people that put out a Mind Body broadcast you could be listening to. Oh, baby. So you can do things like that. You can do things like going to recreational hot tubs. Like I know that here in Calgary, they have like a recreational center, whatever. You can go swim around in the family swims. You can go play basketball. And here's the thing. What I should really make sure I'm driving home is it does not have to be physical. Like you do not have to go replace another physical. Like maybe if you like to play board games with your friends, find some friends that want to play snakes and ladders with you and whoop your ass like they do with me. Sure, why not? You can also go to I think they have escape rooms here. You ever heard of these?
Yeah, we have them. That's like a pretty popular thing.
Yeah, see, exactly. Yeah, like you get some people together and they put you in this room. You have to solve puzzles to go out there. Like that, if you, especially with the power of Facebook and everything else, is you can go in on there and type in events in my town, and there's got to be stuff there. There's also an app I think called Meetup. I've joined one called Couch Surfing. It's an app I had to sign up for, which is basically how to travel around the world and just basically sleep on someone's couch, and they will kind of give you a tour of the city. It is super, super cool. And even locally here, one of the guys that's an ambassador, he has events every month, and I went to one I think 2 weeks ago, and it was fun as heck. I got to meet some people that are also into traveling. So there you go. And not only that, but then if I am going to recommend one last thing on how to bring yourself or become more into balance, is pick something that is not even close to fitness related, such as that couch surfing thing. Like that, because that will not only make you appreciate the gym and the fitness stuff a heck of a lot more, but like will also give you a diverse, we'll say, skill set just with either conversations with people. And again, don't think that this is a waste of time. Just like how Austin went out to his matches or whatever, and I kind of contested him on that. And he said it did not affect my progress in any way. And I said, yeah, I probably made it better because you relaxed and saw something you loved. So yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's so much you can immerse yourself in. And like I said, you can absolutely still execute your plan and eat your meals and all that stuff if that's something you're, most worried about. And, I'm not talking about situations where you're allotted free meals and this and that. I'm just talking about the general sense. Like this stuff doesn't have to. That's like, to me, it's balanced because you're diversifying, but at the same time, you're still really doing a really good job with your physique enhancement as well. So, I mean, it's really win-win, so if anything, all that stuff's just going to enhance your results elsewhere, because again, it is a stress reliever. It's stimulating. I guarantee that it certainly won't negatively impact you. Now, if your hobby is to take up bar hopping on the weekend, yep, that's certainly not going to coincide with your goals very well. And I wouldn't say that that's balanced anyhow, because that completely goes against the whole health side of things. So I mean, outside of something like that, or if you're trying to take up going around doing competitive eating, probably
yeah.
work. But I mean, again, like you said, try to make it something that's not food related and not related to bodybuilding in any way, shape, or form. And it's nice. It is good to have something, and everyone has something. And sometimes I always find it amusing to find out what my clients like. And a lot of the time I'll find out through emails or their consults and stuff, but sometimes I find out more just through like social media and things. Like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I always enjoy seeing that people have that, have that diversity.
Oh, absolutely. I have a very gorgeous painting of anyone that knows how frigging nerdy I am of the Final Fantasy VII logo over top of my TV. I'll have to put it in the show notes or put it up here sometime. One of my clients, Roseanne, that I trained years ago, and I did not know she was, same thing as you, had her on social media, and she's like, oil painting I just drew. And I was like, okay, that looks cool, but it was only an Instagram size photo, right? So funny enough, my buddy is her husband, Brandon. So I went over to their place and it ended up being one of these ones that's 6 feet by 10 feet. And I was like, oh my, and the detail was I was like, can you make me one of this logo that I've been obsessed with since I was a young kid? And she said, yeah, absolutely. And so I would have never known that this girl that came to the gym to get in shape, I forget what her job was at the time, but how she had always had such a damn passion for art. And I was like, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. That's so cool. I wish I could paint that damn good, but that's, yeah, I thought I'd add that in there. I think we should wrap this up here with, we have a couple things here as in when things become unbalanced. We talked about what do you want to accomplish where you're at in life, and then also being too influenced by others, such as social media, to live up to now start believing that you have to be this in order to accomplish your goals. And what I mean by that is you'll have heard of Team No Days Off. You'll have heard of you find either a girl, guy, you can find any one of them, bodybuilding, men's classic. You can find these people that will at least appear to be nonstop in the gym all day, every day. And here's the trick, is that a lot of them are professionals that you will be finding this doing, especially if you're finding any kind of interviews with them, which now that means they're literally being paid to work out, which means they probably aren't doing another physical job or on top of things outside of that. So those are the people that we can't look to for balance, because their lives are unbalanced because of how much either pressure from cover shoots or guest appearances that they are, though, right? So just be watched to be informed about kind of that stuff too. And even when I say by others, I know that you've seen this, that there's a regional level, there's always going to be someone that's crazy in better shape than you. And we can't look at them and see they're either going to do twice a week at the gym and look amazing, or they're going to do 9 times a week at the gym and look amazing. And for us to be so influenced by that's now what we're taking on as our shape of balance, that's kind of what not to do. And so what I would like to get your opinion on here, I'll give you mine, and we'll leave off with this, is what are the clear signs of being unbalanced in your life potentially? And I know we said this is very subjective, but I'm going off of what I have seen for my clients and have seen in myself that are warning signs that I now can, thank gosh, see as I'm older, or at least have someone ask to take a look on me type of thing, or I can see it in my clients. So some of the clear signs I see are when all of a sudden now you have no finances. Your savings account is drained from supplements, from competing so much, from hotels. That's one thing. Your happiness is actually starting to change. And I don't mean this last 4 to 6 weeks of prep stuff. I'm just talking about could be deep into the off season. You're just a little bit more grouchy. And so, and if a couple people do say to you hey man, you doing okay? And you want to say, well, it's your problem. And then another person says it. Maybe that's one thing to pay attention to. Your relationships, either friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, family. If you are giving them up in lieu of this, we'll say bodybuilding endeavor, and you're giving them up for a while, and I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and it's not like you had a bad relationship with them or whatever, and you're losing these relationships, that's a clear sign. Then moodiness and characteristics of yourself start to change. One of the key ones, I'll remember this one like no one's business. During my first show, I didn't really do it right. It was nothing against the coach I had at the time, but I've been as I said on our audio biography, I've always been interested in one thing more than fitness, and that's music. And I remember being about the last 4 or 5 weeks out of my show, and I didn't want to listen to music. And that's when I knew that I was really unbalanced, that I was obsessively thinking about this show and not in the right way. So that would kind of be the 3 of the things that are, sorry, 4 of the things that I would say that are clear signs. What do you kind of have there for things that you've noted?
Yeah, not a whole lot I can add to that, but I just saying generally being unhappy. There's not, I mean, at the end of the day, there's really no point in doing something that makes you unhappy if you don't, because it's not paying your bills. It's just doing more harm than good. And the thing is, most of the more intuitive coaches like myself and you, we're going to be able to see that. And then eventually we're going to see it. It comes out. It definitely comes out. And yeah. And like you said, abandoning things that you would have otherwise done before that were not hurting your goals to begin with, abandoning relationships and things like that. And the only thing that the only real caveat, I guess, would be if they're damaging relationships. You will get instances where, there's people that, I'm going to give you a real extreme example. Sure. And I'm not saying it's hard to explain, but I've definitely had people that have adopted this lifestyle in a way that I felt was very healthy. They weren't competitors, they're just general clients, lost a lot of weight, improved their health, feel better. They're more confident. All super positive things. If someone that I would certainly consider balanced and healthy in what they're doing, and their relationship with their spouse, for example, went south, and it was simply because their spouse also wouldn't adopt that lifestyle. So I don't know if you've ever run into that. I've definitely had long-term clients that have gone through breakups, divorces, all that stuff. And I think that there are scenarios where, I wouldn't be totally upset about that, because maybe that's what needed to happen for them to better themselves. But in general, you don't have to abandon friends, abandon family, abandon all the things that you enjoy doing. I think, like we said, a lot of the time, those things are perfectly, you're able to adopt them within your lifestyle, and you're still going to get the results that you want. You're still going to be able to execute your plan and all that. So, assuming your hobby previous to competing or previous to fitness wasn't, like I said, bar hopping or binge drinking or something, those things, you're not going to be able to adopt that in your lifestyle, or chain smoking or something, you know what I mean? So,
sure do.
But general hobbies, like, again, you talked about guitar. What would be the reason that you would have to give up something like that?
Exactly right. Exactly.
Why? It literally has no bearing whatsoever on this aspect of your life, the fitness aspect of your life. It's the same thing with the hobbies that I enjoy. It is not going to, because I want to go to a wrestling meet or watch a motocross race or something, is going to have any bearing on my bodybuilding results. But you do find that people completely just shut themselves out of everything. And that's really all that is just a textbook sign of depression. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's a textbook sign of a mood disorder, of something, some kind of psychological issue. That's what it is. Really. It's just that it's manifested from bodybuilding or from fitness in some way. It happens to people in all aspects of their, people that aren't in the fitness industry. It happens to them. They get involved in something that consumes them, and they run into that shut out, feeling. But it just so happens that it happens a lot in our industry because of the, how involving it is.
Right.
It's just kind of lends itself to that kind of that kind of situation. So that's kind of my take.
That's awesome, man. That's was a perfect wrap up. This is exactly what I was hoping from you and a little bit more. So as always, impressing me, man. Impressing me. That's good. I love it. But yeah, I think that was really, really good overview on just not only two guys and with nice thighs. Just kidding. If that was two guys' views on balance, what they've learned over the years, what we've learned from coaching people and how they can dip into being unbalanced or balanced, and just if I had to give just one piece of advice out of this entire thing, it's the first thing I said was, do not go looking for balance. Let it come to you. And because I've seen more and more times and times again, and I know everyone says that, but I have time and time again that when people go looking for balance, they not only do not find it, they find things that are more out of balance, as opposed to just, carpe diem, live in the moment. Don't worry too far about the future. Don't think too far about the past, and just, it'll come to you. Hopefully, I can tell you I've been more balanced, and then I learned from the non-balanced things. So there's the other kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of my last speech on that. Anything you'd like to add, brother?
I'm going to say it, and it'll probably sound contradictory, but I truly think that you can be in the hardcore bodybuilding crowd and be balanced in a way, in your own way. For sure.
You sure can. You do not need to follow the template of what is hardcore, for sure.
Yep.
Awesome. So, we definitely got nothing else to say after that. So from Austin and Marty here at the Mind Body Broadcast, thanks for listening.